Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football, a Love Story, and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, here on the campus of Bloomsburg University, sitting with head football coach Paul Darragh. Coach, thanks for taking time today.
You got it, Emery.
Now, thanks for having me come in. I mean, it's a beautiful day outside. You're still doing football things, which is probably why you've had a lot of success. I mean, you started off your head coaching career 21-4, 2 seasons as head coach. You go on to your 3rd season, and you spent a lot of time here as an assistant, over 16 years as an assistant. So you starting off 21-4 isn't by happenstance, it's a process. When did this process of success start for you?
Well, when I first got here, I think the program, Coach Hale and John Devlin and the rest of the staff, along with the players, had already established the program as a successful one. And certainly I just kind of sat back and kind of took notes and understood that some of the little things that caused the program to have success that were important, along with having great players and great coaches. But so the process began by just watching how it all played out and how it all worked and being a part of it, and knowing that I learned a lot of great lessons from Coach Hale. So as an assistant, I think you plan on hopefully one day being a head coach, and you take notes and figure out that ultimately you have to be your own person. But I think it was a great example for me to be able to work for Coach Hale and see how he treated his players and coaches, and along with how he really just treated the community, and all those things go into having a successful program. So I certainly had a great mentor, and just hopefully took the right notes.
Now, when you stepped in day one, did you have to do anything different, or was day one just like day 385 or what have you when you became a head coach?
Well, it was different because I was now the head coach, and certainly it was hard to replace. You couldn't replace a coach like Danny Hale, but what I thought was imperative is that we tried to maintain who we were and how we ran things, and because I think that has been a critical part of the success that we've had. So it was imperative that we instill the culture that was here, continue to do the things that we do on both sides of the ball, the way we coach the players. So I learned that it was probably imperative that we try to continue the culture and tradition that was here, and hopefully that we've done that, and that's why we've been able to have some success.
Now, Coach, you guys are consistently amongst the best in the nation in rushing and stopping the run. I want to say less than 3.5 yards a carry for like the last 3 to 4 years. It's been impressive. How are you able to instill that physical mindset in your players?
Well, I think we teach them it's a philosophy that we have to, we practice it. And I think ultimately anything that you want to be good at, you have to practice. So for us, the nice thing is we are determined to run the football, so we have to be determined to stop the run game. And with that, when we practice, that's a big emphasis. And so it helps us on both sides of the ball in the line of scrimmage to have that mentality. Ultimately, we have to be a little careful on the physicality of practice, but I think our guys learn that in that time that we're out there on the field and we're working, especially the run game, that it's got to be the physical part. It's got to be that same type of attitude on both sides of the ball that we're going to have on Saturdays. So it helps. There's no question that if we have the mentality we want to control line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball and run the football, we're going to be able to practice that on defense and have to stop it. And so I think it's helped us on both sides.
Do you think that is more of, I guess how I can ask this is, do you feel as though that's something you can go out there on Saturday and just pick up right away, or that's something that has to be instilled day in, day out?
Yeah, I think it has to be instilled day in and day out. I think it's hard to turn it on Saturday if you haven't worked it through the week. And it is a mentality. There's no question. I think when we go into spring practice, when we go into camp, those are the things that are emphasized on both sides of the ball. But ultimately, you got to practice that way. So our tempo, even though our snaps may not be numerous, it's going to be full speed, and it's going to be like it needs to be on Saturday. So ultimately, I have learned, that's one thing I learned from Coach Hale, if you want to play great, you want to play physical, you got to practice that way, and that's what we do.
Now, since you've been here both as an assistant and as a head coach, you guys have only had one losing season, and that was 5-6, which probably gets you in one of the bowl games in the FBS. But it's very tough to build a consistent winner and stay consistent in this landscape of college football. How are you guys able to do so?
Well, I think when I look back, certainly working for Coach Hale and then trying to implement and keep the kind of program that he had, ultimately I think it comes down to, it is a fine line, and a lot of times, you know, it's a couple plays that make the deciding factor in a game. But if you have a culture and a system and you're consistent there, if it's a winning culture, and some of the things that go into having a winning culture are just forming good habits and doing things the right way both on and off the field, and having really a good system, a good scheme. It doesn't have to be unique, but it just needs to be consistent and a scheme that puts your guys in position to be successful. I think if you have those two things, the culture, the winning culture, and the system, you got a chance every week, you got a chance every year. And I think the other part that we try to get across to our players is that nothing's taken for granted. They're not entitled to anything because we've won consistently over the course of the last 15 years to 20 years. That every year is different, every team's different. But if that culture's in place and the system's in place, then we got a chance.
Now, Coach, you were an all-East linebacker at Temple, 3-year starter. You guys are just wired differently at that position. And I know I'm biased as a running back, but linebackers are definitely wired a little bit differently. And I've never seen a linebacker that is not passionate about what he does, on or off the field. So what was it about the game itself that captures you, and how are you able to maintain that throughout as a player and also as a coach?
Well, I think the one thing I always liked about linebacker, you're always in the play. You know, you're always at the point of attack if you were good at it, you know, and so there wasn't any time to take a play off. So I kind of like that about playing linebacker. Yeah, I think the other part is that, you know, you can be passionate in any position. I think obviously linebacker does have that, a lot of times, the leadership aspect that they're looking for, even just getting guys lined up, you know, making the call, setting the front, maybe certainly even being involved in the coverage calls. So it's kind of like having that position as a quarterback on the defensive side of the ball. So I've always thought that was one of the reasons why your linebackers had to be enthusiastic, had to be vocal, and certainly hopefully aggressive. So you know, and it carries over to coaching. I do know that you have to have that kind of mentality as well, and the kids feed off of that. And so the characteristics that come to being a good linebacker, I think also certainly help in being a good coach.
Now, what is it about the game in general that you love the most?
Well, you know, the more I've gotten and been a part of it, I think, is just the sheer, you know, number of relationships you develop. There's no question. It's the largest team sport. I mean, if you just look at numbers, and the idea that you can get 85 guys together along with the coaching staff for one goal, I think is, you know, that's what interests me. And if you can get that and accomplish that, it's a great accomplishment to have everybody on the same page, everybody shooting for the same goal, and hopefully attaining that. And I always felt the physicality of the sport, the speed of it, and the intensity and the challenge, the physical challenge of it was always of interest to me, more so than maybe some other sports. But the idea that you have all those people together, that's why, you know, talk about being the greatest team sport. It might be simply just because of the sheer number. But when you go through a 4 or 5 year playing career and the relationships you develop, and then the intensity of the game, you combine all that. I think it's the greatest team sport, and that's why, because of the numbers and the intensity of the sport we play.
Out of all of the things football teaches, you from many different things, what would you say is the biggest thing football has taught you?
Well, I think it's the teamwork part. I think ultimately when when we have success, a lot of people come up and pat you on the back, shake your hand, and you realize that there's a lot of moving parts on a football team and coaching staff, and so the idea that for the most part, even in a family, and that's what we really are, is a large family, but that it's going to take everybody, and you have to play your part, and ultimately not take the accountability, or not take the accolades all to yourself, because win or lose, it is going to be a collective effort. And ultimately, it's what I learned as a head coach is that more than anything else, you realize the importance of the people around you, players and coaches. But so the teamwork part of it, I think, is what I've gotten from football, is that's what you got to have, that to have success. And whether it's on a football team, in a family, and in a company, ultimately, unless you're on your own, you're going to rely on others, and that's why it's important to have good people around you too. So I think that's the main thing I've learned from football, is that and especially if you want to be good, is you got to have great teamwork and great people around you.
Now, do you think you would have gotten that life lesson eventually, or did football help expedite that process?
Oh, I don't think there's any question football helped expedite that, and I've learned that I kind of see examples through my career, both as a player and as a coach, at times when we weren't successful or as successful, that ultimately it was still the team that was responsible for that. It wasn't one guy, one play, one side of the ball. It was the team, and ultimately that's the case as well when you have success. It's got to be the teamwork, and so I do think that I've learned that, and that's a life lesson that I could take also back home when I go home at night. And so when I'm doing the dishes, hopefully my wife understands that it's a little bit of a teamwork thing. I got to get done, and when I'm cutting the grass, I got to get my boy involved. But that's what I think more. That's what I've enjoyed about coaching and playing, is the team aspect of it, and the side aspect of the relationships that you build. But ultimately, if you're going to win or lose, it's going to be the team doing it.
All right, Coach, you've had a tremendous run here so far as an assistant and as a head coach. If I was a high school student, it would be easier for me to make this decision. But if I was coming to Bloomsburg, what am I getting as a student athlete?
Well, first off, you're getting a quality education, and that's something that is really the most important thing, because the majority of our guys are not going to go on to play in the NFL and have a storied career. Some have, fortunately, but that's not the norm. The norm is to come here and get a great education and play for a program, and I think they can consistently compete and have a chance to win. And ultimately, that's what you want. You want to be able to walk out on the field on Saturdays and know that you got a chance. And it's fun to have that as a coach. I'm sure it's fun to have that as a player. But to be able to get a quality degree and play for a program that's going to be consistently competing for something and having an opportunity to win, because as we all know, for some reason, winning's fun, and if you have an opportunity to win, then I think that's a great thing. So the combination is certainly something that we feel is a big part of what being a BU football player is. It's a student athlete who's got a chance to get a great degree, but also to have a chance to win, and you put those two things together, I think that's a positive experience.
Well, definitely, you've shown it on the field. Guys have done a great job here, both academically and also athletically, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, Emory.
Thank you.